Welcome to Creator's Edge Studio. I'm Tom Marcoux.
And I'm John Colton.
Here at Creator's Edge Studio, we talk about pop culture and things that are fun. And we have the philosophy, teach me something I can use. In this episode, we're talking about the new James Bond feature film, No Time to Die. Yes, we're doing a trailer reaction. We'll also talk about Daniel Craig, Sean Connery, Roger Moore. We'll also talk about how to keep our franchise fresh and relevant, and how to avoid the pitfalls with a franchise. Finally, we'll talk about how to do creative work on demand. So John, you saw the No Time to Die James Bond final trailer. It just dropped recently. So what's your take on this?
I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it had everything that you could possibly hope for. The Aston Martin spinning around with the machine guns going.
Yes.
Jumping motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
James Bond falling off of bridges.
Right.
Explosions. It's got airplanes falling out of airplanes.
Right. In the previous trailer, that airplane turns into a submarine, and that's pretty great.
The thing that has me the most excited, though, there were a number of jokes in this trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like they're trying to inject a little bit of, dare I say, fun back into James Bond.
I like that idea. James Bond used to be fun. James Bond, particularly in the 80s with Roger Moore. Well, Roger Moore to me was a comedian. So it was over the top. It had lots of gimmicks. Certainly, they jumped right on to the space stuff. Right after Star Wars, they had Moonraker. So it was over the top, funny, and fun.
Yeah, there was the line where Bond says, "I met your new 00. She's a disarming woman."
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene where there's a conversation between Moneypenny and the new 00.
Right.
And she says, "I get why you shot him." And then Moneypenny says, "Everyone tries at least once."
Yeah, excellent. Good.
And then there's a scene where he's in a chair and Daniel Craig says, "You can imagine why I've come back to play."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was such a fun tongue-in-cheek line because, he almost didn't come back to play the part.
Right. So there's a little Easter egg, a little meta kind of.
But more than that, I was thinking that's a line I can easily imagine Sean Connery delivering as well.
Ah, excellent. Yes. And that was kind of the thing right from the get-go that Sean Connery would put in there. Like, for example, there's a fight scene and You Only Live Twice. He throws this huge guy into this pit of water with piranha, and they start to eat the guy, and he says, "Bon appetit."
I think there is something natural about heightened situations of danger,
mm-hmm.
where people try to break the tension with some laughter, some comedy.
Yes.
But I think the audience can feel the difference between when it's tilting more genuine and when it's kind of shoehorned in there.
Right, right. Interesting. One thing I thought about is that every Bond actor has to say Bond, James Bond. Going back to Roger Moore for a second, he's talking to a low-level bad guy and he says, "Bond, James Bond." And the bad guy says, "What of it?" Now, this is not a scene that would be in a Sean Connery Bond film. How do you keep a franchise fresh and relevant?
Well, I think that is the question that the studio has been wrestling with. I think the question is fundamentally flawed.
Oh.
I think they're underestimating the strength of what they have and their character, because I would just have to ask, are things like intelligence, national security, and terrorism still relevant in 2021?
Absolutely.
Yeah, very much.
Mm-hmm.
How about psychotic, narcissistic billionaires who are flying things into space? Is that still relevant even now?
Okay.
I imagine so. Are action movies still relevant in 2021? Fast and Furious,
mm-hmm.
that whole franchise would tell us yes. Mission
Absolutely.
Impossible would tell us yes.
Right. Tom Cruise with Mission Impossible #7.
Right. And they're dealing with characters that are in no way as popular as James Bond.
Interesting.
I don't even know Ethan Hunt's name.
You just said it.
But, you get my point, though.
So James Bond is iconic. Even his associates are iconic. We must have
Right.
Moneypenny.
And Q.
Exactly. Usually a villain who has a plan that affects millions of people. The stakes are always high. In fact, there's a quote here from the trailer. Bond says, "If we don't do this, there'll be nothing left to say." So you know the stakes are high. So these things are all iconic about the James Bond films.
I think that's a great point. I mean, he always saves the world.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a great franchise. Again, people love James Bond. Even then, I feel like had the people in the studio been willing to take a little more risk, James Bond could be so much more iconic.
Do you think that the producers have had an iron fist around the Bond series because of fear?
Whew, good question. It might be fear of losing control.
Mm-hmm.
It might be fear of they don't want the director to get too much credit.
Oh.
Maybe not having too big a name. I'm going to read to you a list of directors who have been, some of them 90% of the way there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them wrote their own scripts and wanted to direct a James Bond movie, and they were told no because the powers that be didn't feel it was appropriate. Steven Spielberg.
Of course.
John Landis. John Woo. Quentin Tarantino.
That would be something to see. It certainly would be edgy.
I think that would be one that we would definitely remember.
Yes.
I'm only halfway down the list. James Cameron.
Wow. That would have been something. For a producer to say no to James Cameron, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, and he actually had a script treatment that he wanted to do. I love James Cameron as a director and a writer. Mm-hmm. Just extremely, extremely solid.
Right. And he also understands how to key into things that are part of the culture. What he did with Aliens, for example, where he made it a war movie. So the first movie, Alien, could have been Monster in the House, but he didn't repeat that. He made Aliens a war movie, and he invoked all kinds of things that were iconic to war films, and he made it work very well.
And like I said, I'm really looking forward to this movie. It looks really good. I'm going to go see this in the theaters.
Excellent.
But when I look back at the Daniel Craig movies, mm-hmm. Casino Royale stands out to me as really good.
Oh, sure. Yes. They did so many things right. They avoided, you might say, a pitfall by using the essential elements of James Bond, but doing it in a fresh way. You remember certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. But the rest of the movies, they're kind of a blur for me.
Oh, okay.
But if Quentin Tarantino had done one,
yes,
we'd all remember that 100%.
Yes. So we've covered a number of things. We've covered what could keep things fresh by bringing in new viewpoints, bringing in extraordinary directors, for example. Now what we want to do is talk about how to do creative work on demand. It's something that I have to do every day. No matter how I feel, I have to get right in there and write. And I've developed this process, how we aim to do work on demand with no hesitation. So the word I'm focused on is AIM. A stands for arrange short sessions. That means you could go with the classic thing, the Pomodoro method of doing 20-minute sessions and then a 5-minute break. But I've noticed that if it's really tough, I'm working on a screenplay or I'm working on a novel and it's really tough to get into it, I'll just say, look, I will set my timer 15 minutes. Boom, I go in there for 15 minutes and I may not like what I'm writing. So right next to that paragraph, I'll just type bracket, revise, bracket. But the point is, if I jump in for 15 minutes, no hesitation, and something good will happen. Now, some people, a short session might only be working on 2 paragraphs. So maybe they only work on it for 4 minutes. But the thing is, if you do this every day, you will see progress, which leads us to I, which is improve your progress log. And that means you can log your progress by minutes or the word count or the number of pages that you completed. Currently, I'm keeping a log of my writing of the 4th novel in the Gently Storm series. I log how many minutes I write for a session, like 20 minutes. And then I also log my conversation with someone in my circle about some dialogue. Perhaps it's a 10-minute conversation. And logging these minutes gives me more energy. I feel good about the progress that I'm making. I also feel good about the help I'm getting too. The top best-selling author, John Grisham, who has written 29 best-selling books in a row. He says that if you're serious about writing, you got to do 1 page a day. So however you have a progress log, it can keep up your morale. I will log that I just worked on a novel for 15 minutes in 1 day, and it'll still let me know that I'm still at it. And the top author, Michael Connelly, talks about how he doesn't take days off when he's really into doing his novel because he wants to keep the story alive in his mind. And then M is for maximize mighty companions. What I've noticed is that I can get myself to write something if I tell a friend, hey, how about I call you back in 20 minutes? I want to do some writing and then we can talk about it. And so my mighty companions, these are friends who will be excited for me to continue to make progress. In fact, Julia Cameron, the author of The Artist's Way, talks about believing eyes. These are people who believe you can do something before you even believe that you can do it. And John, you have certainly served that way for me. And I've certainly hoped to have served as a set of believing eyes for you in terms of your expanding what you're doing. And I remember even when you first got into writing screenplays, that it was new for you. And I believe that you could do a great job, and you proved that you could do a great job. So
thank you, Tom.
Excellent. But here's my point. The maximize the mighty companions, one of the ways to do it is that when you develop these friendships, when someone says, hey, you could do this, you avoid offering immediate resistance. What I'll say is, I'll stir it in my soup, or I'll let that simmer for a while. And the point about not offering immediate resistance, saying, that won't work, is that as soon as you offer resistance, then you make it tough, you make it uncomfortable for one of your mighty companions to just give you some ideas to play with. Instead of that, you demonstrate that you will work with it, you'll play with it, you'll think about it. And even if ultimately you don't use the idea, at least it could serve as a stepping stone for something. But shutting people down by offering resistance is not wise in terms of developing your circle of mighty companions. So here's a quick summary. We're talking about jumping in, doing some creative work on demand, these 3 techniques. Arrange short sessions, improve your progress log. You can log your minutes on the project, your word count for that day, your number of pages, and then finally you maximize your mighty companions, because then they'll help you. I've told a friend at some point, hey, how about if I just send you a Facebook chat message, like maybe 10 o'clock tonight, because sometime before 10, I'll write for 20 minutes. And I'll just send you a chat saying, hey, I did write for 20 minutes. It's wonderful to have that kind of support. People talk about having an accountability partner. Now, John, I'm wondering, we've talked about a lot. Is there something that you would like to add as we come to a close?
You hit a good point with accountability partner. As much as writing and creative ventures are kind of a solo act in a lot of ways, I just feel like having somebody to bounce ideas off. And yes, I think you also need a friend that you can tell good news to.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Tom.
So thanks for listening to our show. We're so glad that I think you had a cue there, John.
And if you like easy access to the latest videos, become a subscriber and you'll get notifications of new uploads and new videos.
That was certainly formal there, John.
Well, okay. I'm a big fan.
Catch you next time.